Dear students, welcome to the MOOC on India's foreign policy in a globalizing world. In this lesson, we are going to learn about how India became a global power. Main objectives of this lesson: to understand what is global power, to study the factors that determine a country as a major power, to understand about India as an emerging power. We begin with the first part of the lesson, in which we will discuss about how security and economic interest and China as a factor determined India as a global power. India's nuclear test in 1998, its steady economic performance, its population and size, and being the world's largest democracy have changed not only India's perception of itself, but the world's perception about it. On the economic front, India's performance in infrastructure, growth in the IT sector and manufacturing sector have changed its economy to a greater extent. The country has evolved from a predominantly agrarian economy to one driven by services and technology. Its legal structure, corporate governance, banking system, financial sector, digital transactions, skilled manpower and young workforce have become the new engines of its economic growth and icons of major power status. India's economic growth is largely driven by domestic factors such as rising consumption and domestic investment, favorable demography, growing affluence and long-term encouraging growth prospects. Despite its low per capita GDP, it is a significant market. On purchasing power parity basis, it is the third largest economy in the world and the second fastest growing economy. Its imports have grown rapidly both in value and share. It has been trying to enhance its capabilities and capacities to ensure its strategic autonomy, which will in turn help it to achieve major power status. It aims to become a regional and global player in diplomatic and security matters. India, to present itself as a dynamic country, has to play a greater role in ensuring stability, security and peace in Asia and in the world. Thus, its aim is to transform itself into a competitive, developed and prosperous country. India, where 1.4 billion people live, is characterized by low gross domestic product, low per capita and low literacy rate, coupled with high birth and high death rates. It is afflicted by a number of problems, social, political and economic. India needs to concentrate on sustainable growth, otherwise it would be difficult to address the problem like violence, instability and insecurity. Though a number of steps have been initiated, still a lot has to be done in terms of development and security. India's rise cannot be translated into a tangible form unless the internal problems are addressed. Besides, India has strained relations with its neighbors. Sino-India relations are not only complicated, but exist at various levels. Apart from the regional emphasis, border and trade issues, India-China power struggles have surfaced in various issues related to Southeast Asia and East Asia. India's lookist policy, which has evolved into the actist policy, has brought forth reactions from China, which sees it as an attempt not only to extend its own regional influence both multilaterally through various regional groups such as ASEAN, East Asian Summit and bilaterally agreements with Japan, Singapore, Vietnam, but also to enter in China's own region of influence. China called the lookist policy a covert containment of China policy and have severely criticized the port calls by Indian naval vessels to countries like Vietnam and the Philippines. India acknowledges its global responsibilities in areas such as climate change, peacekeeping and humanitarian aid. Its contribution in these areas reflect its commitment to being a responsible major power and a leader in addressing global challenges. China is a factor in determining India as a global power. India and China share a long history and are marked by plethora of unresolved issues, foremost among them being the ongoing border dispute between them. Interestingly, both New Delhi and Beijing stand in unity when it comes to advocating for the inclusion of non-East Asian countries such as Australia and New Zealand into the East Asian Summit. There is, however, a subtle difference between the positions adopted by the two countries. While India believes that in the context of Pan-Asian community, countries like India and others should be part of regional integration initiatives, the former Chinese Premier Wen Jiabao stated regional integration should be promoted by the countries in the region with the characteristics of region and suited to the needs of the region, while simultaneously giving full consideration to reasonable interest in the region of non-East Asian countries. The term full consideration implied a secondary status to the three EAS partners from outside the region. At the beginning of 2005, China was diplomatically active in dissuading nations in the region from lobbying for India's membership. This received no support from regional nations, which was interpreted as reflecting in general the keenness of East Asian powers to have India as a balance against China's growing profile in the region. Consequently, Beijing settled for the next best option for building an East Asian community by attempting to divide the EAS membership into two blocks, core states, with China leading inside the 10+3, that is ASEAN, China, Japan, Republic of Korea, and the three peripheral states India, Australia and New Zealand, being described by the Chinese as outsiders. In the context of ASEAN, India and China recognize the centrality of ASEAN in the process of East Asian cooperation. Beijing, for its part, has added a rider to this by saying that existing mechanisms like China ASEAN Summit 10+1, ASEAN China Japan Republic of Korea 10+3 Summit and the China Japan Republic of Korea Summit should play a central role in the process. It makes no mention of ASEAN +6, which includes India, and has stressed on the role of 10+3 mechanism, with China providing long-term and strategic guidance and acting as the main channel for East Asian cooperation. In the context of the ASEAN community, which was formed in 2015, the ASEAN-India Dialogue Partnership has been viewed positively in the matter, with China expressing its full support to this plan. In the larger context of the East Asia FTA, China continues to emphasize the leadership of the ASEAN +3 grouping, which includes China in realizing the target of a free trade area for East Asia. India is enthusiastic about the future realization of the Asian Economic Community, which would mark the formation of an arc of advantage spanning from the Himalayas to Pacific Ocean and providing for large-scale movements of people, ideas and connectivity. China continues to be silent on this issue. China and India's views on a desirable security order in East Asia often clash. India prescribes a polycentric security concept for East Asia, which implies its opposition to any country dominating the regional security architecture. China, on the other hand, talks about a regional security environment of mutual trust, guaranteeing stability by bridging differences through dialogue on an equal footing. India opposes the creation of any ineffective sub-regional security arrangements, while China prefers security mechanisms at different levels and in different areas. India advocates a polycentric security concept opposing dominance by any single country. China promotes a regional security environment of mutual trust and prefers diverse security mechanisms. I hope you understood about how security and economic interest and China as a factor determine India as a global power. We will discuss about India and the Asia Pacific, multipolar world, South Asia and Southwest Indian Ocean in the next video. Thank you.